Well, after the game against Colombia, Greg Berhalter told us his team needed a wake-up call, Herc. What'd you think about their performance here against Brazil?
I thought it was solid, very solid. Wake-up call is an interesting way of putting things, right? And last game, I didn't think the U.S. men's national team was as bad as the scoreline indicated. And you and I spoke about this. If it was a 3-1 scoreline, I would have been fine with it. I thought I got away from them in the last 15 minutes of the game. Individual mistakes cost them. Timothy Weah trying to drill out the back. Cameron Carter-Vickers, deflection off of him, Tim Ream, and then it was Johnny Cardoso, and Chris Richards couldn't get on the second header. Matt Turner error. There were a lot of individual errors that led to that 5-1 scoreline. You have to tidy up. You have to be a much more pragmatic team when you defend, but they showed how confident they were and how they attacked. And what I mean by that is they played through this Brazil team. In Orlando, where it was a much larger Brazilian population in that fan base or in that crowd, the U.S., they were very direct, but they played through them. They never once shied away. They never once went route one. It was, we are good enough to play through you, and they did. And I thought, Seb, they were very unfortunate not to come away with the win. The first ever win in this team's program against Brazil. The goal they gave up, as soon as they give it up, you almost got this, again type of feeling because they were playing so well on top of Brazil. And you look at this play right here, Matt Turner, and remember World Cup qualifying in Canada, Matt Turner gave up the same type of ball, and Kyle Larin, I believe it was the one who put it past him in the end. This play right here, once he gives it up, can you have a better reaction? I'm talking about Yunus Musa. Yunus Musa has his hands up in the air and then doesn't react to close down a lane. And it's one mistake, but can you be there to protect your teammate, put out that fire, maybe close that lane, get a little tighter, make him think twice, the next phase of that attack? He doesn't do that. They score, and you think things are going to go the wrong way for the U.S. men's national team, but the resolve was there. I loved how compact they were, and I mean compact, it's in that middle third, oftentimes in a mid-block. They created and they made the game very, very tight in that midfield. They pretty much told Brazil, we don't respect you in that midfield. And it looked that way. Brazil's midfield line was the worst part of their team. They looked like three mid-table or three, Premier League mid-table players because, well, quite frankly, that's where they play. But they treated them that way. And quite frankly, we've never seen the U.S. men's national team treat Brazil that way. I thought it was a solid performance, and I repeat, very unfortunate not to come away with the win. And Matt Turner, this is going to do wonders for his confidence because this is a guy that's been struggling at the club level, struggling with the U.S. men's national team. He needed a performance like this heading into Copa America.
We haven't had a show, Herc, since the Colombia 5-1 game. We've been on air, right, but we haven't had a show. And so I think what we've been hearing a lot from fans is how much frustration there was in the immediate aftermath of that game. And if you go over the kind of laundry list of concerns, I think in almost every category, Herc, if you're a U.S. fan, you got to feel a lot better than you did today, given what you saw a few days ago against Colombia. I'll start with the back four. And I was really surprised, Herc, to see it be the same back four as we saw against Colombia. Because when you see a team ship 5, you expect to see some changes. You might especially expect to see some changes in the back. And to your point, a lot of those mistakes, a lot of those goals against Colombia came from individual mistakes of the 4 players in that back line. So when Greg Berhalter rolls them out again against Brazil, that's what I'm watching. That back four, how are you going to hold up? How are you going to work defensively? And I thought they did very well, but I think it also tells us, Herc, that is the back four. There ain't no other options, right? If that back four could ship 5 against Colombia and get trotted out today against Brazil and have a good performance, full credit to them, there must not be much else in the tank.
I think you're right. I don't think this was their best showing against Colombia. And listen, Joe Scally's had a hell of a last 2 games having to deal with Luis Diaz and then Vinny Jr. And I thought he did extremely well. But given some of these players and how they play for their club teams and what they were asked to do today, I thought they were excellent, especially a guy like Tim Ream, who I've been very hard on. I thought had maybe a send-off type game against Colombia, gets a second chance today, and he was one of the best players for the U.S. men's national team, just cold-blooded with the ball at his feet, played through everything, very composed, never saw a physical liability out of him. The guy that you want in that type of moment, the leader that you need in that back line, It was a solid performance. I also had my doubts about the midfield because you're going to play against a Brazilian team. Brazil is just known for taking care of the ball, known for running through you, and you're going to play it with not one nominal 6. Yunus Musa is a very good player, but by no means a 6. Tyler Adams is still not fit enough, or for this game wasn't fit enough to play or start. And you thought he would have gone back with Johnny Cardozo's. Given that Johnny Cardozo's, Brazilian American, it's second generation Brazilian from the States. This game would have meant a lot to him. You thought he would have gone there for Johnny in this game. He doesn't. He goes with Yunus Musa, and they controlled that midfield. They went right through him. And even though some of those players in that midfield, like a Weston McKennie, didn't have his best game, they ran through this midfield. So I was very pleased at the response from the U.S. men's national team. And we have to give Greg Berhalter some credit here. It's not easy to see your team play that way and then have them come with this response versus a team that historically has dominated you. This is the first tie in this program's history. And I repeat, they could have gotten the win. I thought Greg Berhalter prepared them well, had them defensively in the way that they should be playing in this Copa America, catered to the Brazilian team. That's one of his Greg Berhalter's specialties, whether it works or not, is that he likes to cater the way his team will play defensively for the opponent. And I thought it was brilliant against Brazil.
When you see 1-1 versus 5-1 against, similarly talented or slightly similar to the talented competition, you say, well, the 1-1 game must have been a more pragmatic approach. And we have all been asking for more pragmatism from the U.S., and you got to go back to the way the U.S. played in the 90s, and you can't be this team that wants to play out of the back. Herc, were they actually more pragmatic today? Because they were still playing out of the back under really high pressure at times from Brazil. At times successfully. We showed you the Turner mistake. There's other sequences tonight where they strung 15, 20 passes together under high intensity pressure. It didn't burn them today, but it's not like they abandoned building out of the back against Brazil tonight.
Let's not confuse being pragmatic with abandoning the way you attack.
Your identities, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
You can attack the way you know how to attack, and the U.S. men's national team has been successful attacking this way. Quite frankly, when we've seen him be successful, which is against CONCACAF opposition, against Mexico, playing through him this way. But being pragmatic, I think, is defensive, and the responsibility. It's being more simple in your game. We saw a low block versus Colombia. We saw a mid block here against Brazil, and they made it very compact. The field for the U.S. men's national when they defended was about 30 to 35 yards in space, which was really difficult for Brazil to play through. And oftentimes they had to resort to going long or through the channels. And I think that went to the strengths of the U.S. men's national team, where physically they were on par, if not better. It was very well done. I was very surprised at the way they were able to, for one of the first times I've seen them playing a mid-block like this and be so successful with this. I repeat, if not for the Matt Turner mistake that leads to the goal, this is a much different performance that we're talking about. It's still a very good performance, but the way they attacked was never compromised. The way they built out was never compromised.
Do you think that mistake from Matt Turner, it's obviously on Matt Turner, he's the goalie, he's the responsible player, but is that because of what Greg Berhalter is asking Matt Turner to do?
Absolutely.
Is that why that mistake occurs?
Well, it's not because Greg Berhalter is asking him to do it that it occurs. It's because Matt Turner can't do it that it occurs. So the way Matt Turner finished this game, there's no controversy for me. He's still going to be the goalkeeper in mind. But certainly, when you see what's being asked of your goalkeeper and how he wants to play, it screams a different profile of goalkeeper. It screams more of a Zach Steffen. Zach Steffen's been that guy with his feet. Matt Turner's been that guy with his hands. Matt Turner holds records in the U.S. men's national team in a World Cup for most shutouts because of his hands, not his feet. So he's got to continue to be Matt Turner between the posts, but you've got to be cleaner going forward. You can't put yourself or your team in that position. And I repeat, if you're the U.S. men's national team, you have to help each other out. You have to bail each other out. Mistakes will happen. You can't allow for that to come right back down your throat and into the net.
Herc, I want to ask you about some individual performances here. I know we had you do player ratings. One player that I do want to focus on specifically first, though, is a guy whose player rating I think should be pretty high today, and that's Christian Pulisic. We talk about him a lot on this show, a lot when we talk about the U.S., but Herc, in the big games, in the big moments, he is the guy, and we're going to talk about that free kick goal, and it was sensational, and it was great, but it was not the only moment that he was good. He was very, especially in that first half, Herc,
Yeah.
He was very, very dangerous. He was giving Brazil a ton of problems. And it just goes to show that for all the other guys on this team, the one guy you can count on is the captain. It is Christian Pulisic. It is that guy. It is the number 10. Like, he always shows up in the big moments in a way that I don't think anybody else on this team does.
He's the guy that you need to count on in big moments. If Christian Pulisic has a big game, you're going to be on the winning side of that team. I think I'm going back to the Christian Pulisic moments where he had a good game and the team doesn't win. It's Kova, it's Trinidad, it's with Bruce Arena. I can't, for the life of me, think of another game where they come on the losing side and he had a good performance. With Christian Pulisic in this program, I can't for the life of me think of that. So when Christian Pulisic is going, when he's mentally there, when he's physically there, when he's in that final third, moving on off of all cylinders, he is that man for you. Whether it's scoring goals, giving assists, being dangerous, he's that player. But you got to make sure he continues to be that player for you. And in this Copa America, if the U.S. men's national team is to do anything of worth, to make a special run in what I think is a very tricky group and a compromising cross with who you play in the knockout rounds, it's through Christian Pulisic. It has to be Christian Pulisic.
All right, so let's get into those aforementioned player ratings. Herc with a score for, I guess, each of the guys in the 11, right? None of the bench players. This is on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being Seb, 10 being Herc. What do you got here? I can't read. Those are way too small for me. I see a bunch of .5s.
I gave Turner a 7. Turner honestly would have been higher if not for that mistake.
A 7 with the mistake. Okay, that's still pretty high with the mistake.
He was very good. Sans the mistake, he would have been the best player on the field, but that mistake took him down. I'm regretting that I gave Scally a 6.5.
Brazil had 12 shots on target, I think, by the way, so he was busy, I
regret that I gave Scally a 6.5, now that I think of it, because I made a comment about how he was so busy with Luis Diaz and now Vinny Jr., handling two types of players that way. I should have rated him higher. I now immediately regret it. I'm going to go ahead and give him a 7 as well.
Okay.
Chris Richards, I thought was solid. There was a little play where Vinny spun him towards the midfield at the inline. I'm sorry, at the sideline.
Happens to the best of them.
Happened to the best of them. That was about as costly as you could have gotten for Chris Richards. He had the red card appeal taken away, no foul, et cetera, et cetera. I thought Tim Ream was excellent. I don't know who gave it. I didn't give Anthony Robinson a 7.5. I gave him a 6.5, by the way.
Whoa.
6.5.
Production must love them some Anthony Robinson, eh?
Yeah, I know, right? Tim Ream, I thought he was excellent, man. I've been overly critical at times of this guy. You know, I honestly thought Colombia was his send-off game. He proved me wrong tonight. He was very good. Very excellent in distribution, so calm, cool, and collected. A leader back there, good in aerial duels. I thought Musa was solid, faded towards the end of the game. Obviously started very well with the shot off the crossbar. I thought he could have done better on Matt Turner's mistake. I didn't like the posture, the body language there. Reyna and McKinney, that midfield, it was a lot of work. I thought Gio Reyna did well at times. I thought Weston McKinney just wasn't involved enough. I don't know what was going on with Weston McKinney, but he didn't seem like his lively self, his energetic self on both sides of the field. He had 16 touches in the game around the 65th, 70th minute mark. I thought Ricardo Pepi's one of these games where the 9, the reason he played tonight was because Folarin Balogun nor Haji Wright's going to give you that defensive commitment. Ricardo Pepi will. He'll be that honest player for you. I thought it was one of those games where it was a no-win for him. If he got something, any type of opportunity in goal, maybe something could have happened, but he was more on the defensive end than anything. I thought Timothy Weah started very good, very bright. I thought the first half he was very good. Just, I don't know if it's fitness levels, if he's not used to playing, over 45 minutes, but he faded drastically in the second half. And we've already spoken about how good Christian Pulisic was. I thought he was unlucky not to get a second goal. You give Christian Pulisic chances, he will feast. He had a goal off a free kick that I think Allison maybe wants back, but it's a bit of trickery on Christian right there. And I got to give Greg Berhalter his flowers. 7.5. I thought he was excellent in the way he brought this team out. And even some of the subs he made, I mean, Brendan Aronson was in a position, to win the game. Christian Pulisic, in the second half. Johnny Cardozo comes on. Folarin Balogun comes on. There's got Tyler Adams some minutes. I thought Greg Berhalter did well this game. And I repeat, it's not easy. I'm sure Greg Berhalter has not had an easy week trying to answer questions about his job security, about his team's lack of motivation against Colombia, lack of conviction, lack of execution. If the players believe what's going on here, it's very difficult to get a team that played so poorly back on track against a team like Brazil in Orlando, majority Brazilian fans, and put up that type of performance.
Can we focus on a couple of the guys in the 11 tonight? Because there were only 2 changes, Herc, from the team that started the 5-1 loss against Colombia. Obviously, one of them was up top, Ricardo Pepi instead of Balogun. The other was in midfield. Musa gets the start tonight instead of Johnny Cardozo. To me, what that suggests is that those are the 2 spots in the lineup that the coach still has questions about. I wonder if you agree with me there, and if you do, what do you think the answer to those questions is? Is it Pepi or Balogun? Is it Musa or Cardozo?
Unfortunately, Seb, it's neither Pepi nor Balogun, Musa or Cardozo. It's the profile. And I know you've heard this before. Greg Berhalter is a coach that goes off of profiles. He sees a player, he profiles them. This is my type of player for this type of opponent. It's going to depend on the opponent. If it's a Uruguay that's fight, that's claw, that's direct, that's vertical, I think it's going to affect the type of 9 that he has in the game. It's going to affect also the 6 that he needs in there. If it's a team that may let you have a little bit more of the ball, like a Bolivia, because they will sit and they will try to absorb, they will try to defend and be compact, you may need a Yunus Musa in that 6th position because you know you're going to have more of that ball. You may need a Fowler and Balogun or a Haji Wright, whatever the case may be. I think when it comes to Greg Berhalter, he's going to go by profile on these 2 positions.
So I want to ask you a big picture question about how we evaluate what we saw from the U.S. today, but it has a little bit more to do with Brazil. Because obviously we're following Mexico's preparations for this tournament, acknowledging that the Brazil 11 that was used against Mexico was much different than the Brazil 11 we saw tonight against the U.S. But we saw, Herc, what's a very bad Mexico that got destroyed by Uruguay be able to score not once but twice against this Brazilian team. Are there some doubts, bigger picture, about Brazil? Because, by the way, this is still the same U.S. team, outside of those 2 changes, that shipped 5 against Colombia. This is a drastically different result just a few days later. Should we maybe knock Brazil down a couple pegs in terms of where we see them as tournament favorites?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think this is the Brazil of old. If we go off player per player, just on paper, it's one of the worst Brazilian teams that you've probably seen in quite some time. The last time I could think of a Brazilian team that was this bad on paper was the Copa America that Dunga had him in 2016, where he gets fired, he gets let go. It's like that. The only thing they have going for him is up top, is how young and electric they can be up top. But if you know that's coming, if you can stifle that service, eliminate those space, they don't have the midfield creativity. It's not the Brazil of old, even down the flanks, when it comes to the outside backs to hurt you. This is a different Brazilian team, but they still have very special players. They've got a Ballon d'Or, type of player in Vini Jr. They got a finisher in Rodrigo. They got a generational talent. Looks like it's coming along in Endrick. This is a team that individually can hurt you. Collectively, there are massive doubts. There's a reason that they are where they are, and coming about qualifying and World Cup qualifying. Why they've been struggling. Why teams like Colombia have beaten them. Why they couldn't beat Venezuela at home. Things like that. This team has been struggling, and you can see why.
Yeah. I think if you ask most odds makers, or even like 90% of fans, they'd say Argentina, Brazil, and then everybody else in this tournament. But based on what we've seen in the last couple weeks, I think it's Argentina, then you got to throw Uruguay, Colombia, and maybe Brazil are all there in that second tier after Argentina. But if I were betting futures right now, Herc, I might look a lot more favorably at Uruguay or Colombia than I would at Brazil. That's just being honest.
Absolutely. Especially because if you think Brazil's going to go in second place because Colombia looks so strong, who do you think they're going to play in that cross?
Well, U.S. or Uruguay, depends, right? We don't know how the groups will shake out, but should be a very interesting Copa
Uruguay.
America. And no doubt.
Uruguay, I would say.
Oh, there it is. You and your anti-U.S. men's
That's what the
national
bookmakers
team
would
ways.
say.
All right, plenty more Copa America discussion on this week's editions of ESPN FC. They'll also be building up to the European Championships, which start on Friday. Don't miss a single episode with Dan, Kay, and the rest of the crew.